Welcome class 10 students. Welcome to digital learning which is organized by Vivekanand Mission School in cooperation with Academia mentor Augustin Ramato. Today I have come here with a special class on the poem Fog. So before going through the poem we need to understand about the basic concept of the poem, why the poet has written this poem, thematic approach of the poem, analytical approach of the poem, all these things, and summary also, and the figure of speech which are mentioned in the poem. We need to understand all these things to get good marks if any question will be asked from this area. So stay tuned with me for better understanding. Students, could you identify this picture? What kind of picture is this? This is the picture of a road which is fully covered by fog. So if the road is fully covered by fog, it's quite difficult for us to see anything on the road or anywhere if the place is fully covered by fog. So the poem is also quite similar. Through this poem, the poet Carl Sandburg presents similar kind of scenario, natural scenario where the harbor and the city which is fully covered by fog. Now question may be arised. Is it a kind of simply natural description which is presented in the poem, or is it giving us the picture which is related to our life? We need to understand while going through the poem, we have to understand the outer meaning of the poem, that means the natural beauty of the poem, natural beauty which is mentioned in the poem, at the same time the inner sense of the poem through which we will understand the basic concept of our life. And what is the basic concept of our life? Two basic concepts of our life are: we have got birth on the earth and we have to leave the earth with a change of time. This is one. Another is the passing of time. Sometime we have to pass through good days and sometime we have to pass through bad days. So these two are the eternal truths which we need to face in our life. This is the inner sense of the poem. While going through the poem, I will try to make you understand about the outer meaning of the poem, that means the natural beauty which is mentioned in the poem, at the same time the inner sense of life. I will try to make you understand. So let's begin the class. Now another picture is here. In this picture, the whole city is covered by fog. Fog. If fog covers the area is not supposed to be neat and clean. It is supposed to be fully dark. And in darkness, we are not supposed to see anything. And sometimes we may see, or we may say, if our life is fully dark, when we come, no, when we say our life is fully dark, if something good is not happening in our life, frequently bad days are going on. Frequently, bad happenings are happening in our life. We may say that we are in darkness. For better understanding, let's begin to the text. How fog comes, how fog has been compared with cat, all these things we will understand in the poem. So let's begin the poem. The fog. The fog comes on little cat feet. What do you think? The fog comes to the feet of the little cat. Is it the meaning? No. Here, in beginning these two lines, the poet wants to present the movement of these two things, the movement of cat and the movement of fog. The fog moves very slowly and softly without making any sound. Without making any sound, fog covers the whole area. Either it may be the hilly region, or it may be the harbor, or it may be the city, or it may be the nature. In the same way, the cat also moves without making any sound. It moves from place to place. So, in these two lines, the poet presents the movement of these two things. It sits looking over harbor and city. It sits looking means which thing is referred here as it. It refers to both these two things, the fog and the cat. But in the real sense, the fog covers the harbor and the city. That means what? How the poet is saying? That the fog is sitting over the harbor and the city, covering the whole area of harbor and city. So that means the harbor and the city is fully covered by fog. No one could see anything in the harbor and city. Harbor, you know it very well, the place where the ships are kept. Okay, so the harbor and the city, these two places are fully covered by fog, and due to the presence of fog, the whole area is fully dark. On silent haunches. Now, on the other hand, I already told you on silent haunches means sitting on knees. What I told you earlier, not only the poet is talking about the fog, rather the poet also talks about the cat, which is also sitting on the harbor without making any sound. So, is it simply a cat? No, it is a symbolical presentation. Cat is the symbolical presentation of fog, which covered the whole harbor and city, and how it sits over the harbor and city. It sits exactly like cat on its haunches. First of all, the poet talks about its movement, then how it covers the whole area, then the poet talks about how it is sitting over the harbor and city, and then moves on. I already told you it is not a kind of stable thing. It comes in our life. That means fog comes and stays for a little bit of time and then moves on. That means the particular area becomes neat and clean after the leaving of fog. Is it simply the coming of fog, or the making of darkness and the making of cleanliness? Is it simply the dark picture of fog? No. The poet presents the inner sense, which presents the picture or image of life. Here, fog is the symbolical presentation of our life. Life means the bad days in our life. Fog comes and stays and then moves on. In the same way, the bad days comes in our life, stays for a little bit time, and then it goes on. It passes. And in the mean moment, what is necessary to do? We have to be stable. We need to be confident. We need to have our own confidence. We need to have our power to overcome all these problems. We must not take any kind of wrong step while the bad things are going on. This is the message, this is the moral lesson what the poet wants to give us. The bad days may come in our life, but it will not be stable for a long time, or it will not cover the whole area for lifelong. It has come, it has a certain period, it will stay, and then it will leave the place. In the same way, if the bad things are happening days by days, so that means it has a certain period, it will happen, but after a certain moment, all these things will be over. And once again, the fruitful days will come in our life. This is the moral lesson what the poet wants to give to the readers. Now move to the summary portion of the poem. All these things, what I told you earlier while giving elaboration of the poem, all these things are given in the summary portion. Still I am reading all these things for better understanding. Summary of Fog. Fog summary is the summary of a poem that reflects Carl Sandburg's interest in nature. So through this poem we can understand the interest of the poet, where the interest lies, the poet's interest lies in nature. But is it simply a natural poem? No, it's not a natural poem. Obviously, it's a natural poem, but it exposes the basic meaning of life, the picture of life. The basic two pictures already we know that we have come on the earth, and after passing or with the change of time, we have to leave the earth. This is the universal truth. And another universal truth is that we have our good days and bad days. As we become too much happy in our good days, in the same way, we become too much sad in our bad days. But these two types of days are not stable. They stay for a certain period and then pass. So these two are the universal truth of our life, which we need to adjust, we need to consider, we need to agree with these two concepts, which is eternal. It beautifully captures the moment when the fog comes and moves. He presents a powerful image of life through a metaphorical cat. Already I told you that the fog is not simply fog, rather, cat is not simply a cat, rather, it is the metaphorical uh, presentation of fog. To draw the movement, to draw similar kind of movement, the poet has presented cat and fog, because both these two things moves in the same way. Its meaning is centered on the fog in the Chicago city. The poet compares the fog with the cat because the cat also moves with a soft paws and without giving any sign of its arrival. Already I told you the movement. In the matter of movement, both these two things are quite similar. The fog comes to a particular place without making any sound. In the same way, the cat also moves with its soft paws without making any sound, but stays in a particular place, and then the cat moves on. The same is the case with fog, as it approaches exactly in a similar way. Now move to the next slide. The poet is saying about the fog, which is generally seen during the winter season, and it is coming towards the city and however just like a cat. The next poet the next poet says that the fog has covered the city and harbor completely, and it appears as a cat is sitting by folding its leg and looking around. the poet also described the silent and unpredictable departure of the fog. I told you the over the harbor and the city, the fog is not sitting exactly like a cat. How it could be possible? Is it possible? The sitting of fog on harbor or city? Is it an animate object? No, it's not an animate object. Here, the poet has taken one symbolical character, that is cat, which is sitting over the harbor and city and stays there for a little bit time and then moves on. Exactly, the fog is also quite similar. It covers the harbor and stays for a time, certain period, and then moves on. Now move to the next. This slide is about the poet. What kind of poet is he? Where, in which field he has given his best writing? We need to understand from this slide. Carl Sandburg was a well-known American editor and poet. He has won three Pulitzer Prize, and I think you are quite well known about Pulitzer Prize. This is a kind of international prize which is given in the field of literature. So he has won three times this prize for his well-known works. Most of his poems were about Chicago city where he lived. So most of the poems, whatever he has written in his life, all these poems covered the Chicago city, and this is the poem Fog also covered the natural description of Chicago city, presenting the inner sense of life. Among his many collection of the poem, the Fog is the shortest poem, but still this poem has strong reflection about nature. This poem does have a deeper and strong meaning. Already I told you it is not only a poem which is related to nature, but also it is a poem which presents or which depicts the inner sense and deeper sense of life. The first two lines of the poem are simply describing how fog comes in. So I already told you at the beginning that the first two lines are nothing but the movement of these two things, the movement of fog and the movement of cat. Fogs are visible in cold areas or in mountains or forest, but in the poem the poet describes fog which is happening in the cities and harbor. And in these stages, that means in the next slide, what is written over here? That if fog covers the hilly region or the jungle area, it doesn't have harmful impact. But if it covers the harbor or the city or the crowded city, it may have very much harmful impact upon the human beings. If the road and the area is fully covered by darkness, that means fog, so there might be chance of getting hurt. That means there might be happening of accident. So these things are described in this slide. All these things you need to note down in your notebook. Now move to the next slide. And at last what the poet is saying. At last the poet is saying that a small child gets bored playing the same game and hence moves on to the next. And similarly, three kind of comparison is being given over here. The playing of a boy and the movement of cat. The cat comes to a particular place very slowly and softly and stays there for a little bit time and then moves on. In the same way, the boy also plays a game, and after playing for a little bit time, the boy left. The boy easily leaves the game and then moves to the another game. So this is also quite similar. Similarly, the fog does not stay in one place for a long time. Already I told you these two types of comparison, or two types of similar kind of comparison is being given over here. The movement of fog, the movement of cat, and the movement of a boy. All these three kinds of activities are quite similar. Now, move to the conclusion portion. This very small poem is describing nature's act in a very beautiful manner. Already I told you it is not only a natural poem but also a poem which depicts the basic sense of life, the universal truth of life. We have two universal truth of life. We have come on the earth. We have to stay here for a certain period of time. We have to enjoy our life, and after enjoying our life, when the day will come, that means the living day will come, we have to leave the earth. In the same way, during living on the earth, we must face two different kind of situations, the bad days and the good days. We have to be very much jolly when we will get very good days. At the same time, we must be very sad when we will face our bad days. But we must not lose our control. We must not shatter ourselves in bad days. We have to be stable. We must not be too much happy in joyful mood. At the same time, we must not be too much shattered in bad days. This is the basic concept what the poet has given through this poem, The Fog. Here, last picture about the city. Here, this city picture talks about what? This city picture talks about the clearance of fog. That means, in the same way, the fog, in the same way, the dark days or the darkness of our life will be over with the change of time. So we need to have patience for getting good days or to be happy for our rest of the life. Thank you for staying with me.